is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
And it is time to go qualifying here in Singapore. It's round 17 at the Formula One World Championship, and the first time that Max Verstappen gets a chance to win this year's championship. In order to help him do that, probably quite useful to get your car on pole. 66.66% of races have been won from pole position here in Singapore. Just a few moments to go until we get qualifying underway with our 3 sessions culminating in that top 10 fighting it out to be fastest. We haven't had any more rain since the last practice session, but still a little damp underground or underfoot. Have no idea what it's doing underground. It's probably still damp. Jack Nicholls is our Formula One lead commentator, and Jack, this is going to be a real test of driver and machinery, isn't it?
Looking forward to this, Jenny, because as you say, a wet practice session earlier on. Now the track is dry. It is still going to be a really interesting session because we didn't get much running yesterday. So it's all a little bit unknown. Ferrari, I suppose, are the favourites, having been quickest in every practice session so far. A Red Bull a little bit off the pace. Could Verstappen end up 5th on the grid today, potentially? I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's impossible.
Mark Priestley alongside Jack Nicholls, the former F1 mechanic. Is it going to be a Singapore flyer?
I think it's got potential. You had to get it in at some point. Why not do it early? I think it's got potential to be a really good session for all the reasons Jack has talked about there. The drivers and teams are somewhat unprepared for this. They haven't had the normal routine. They haven't had the normal number of laps, certainly not in the dry. They haven't really had enough in the wet in case it does rain at some point either. So they're kind of unprepared, and from a neutral's perspective, that's exactly what we want.
It certainly is. Going to be great stuff. Jack, who do you think is favourite to get pole, and who do you think is favourite to spring a surprise?
I think the surprise will be Red Bull won't be on pole. Not that they've sort of had the huge pole position dominance this year, because obviously Leclerc was on pole in Monza, Sainz on pole sort of in the end in Spa, but actually it was Verstappen that qualified quickest, and then Russell was on pole in Hungary before then, and then Leclerc before then, so it's not exactly Verstappen's got this huge pole record, but I just think they might not have the pace this weekend, Red Bull, maybe even not to win the Grand Prix, and I think that's going to be a surprise. I'm expecting if you're asking for an actual sort of reasonable surprise, I think maybe Aston Martin. Maybe both Aston Martins into Q3. I think that's the sort of biggest surprise we're going to get, because it's bone dry out there.
Yeah, they've been running well so far this weekend, haven't they? Let's ask the same thing to Mark.
Well, I wonder if the surprise actually might be that Verstappen does get pole, and it might not sound like much of a surprise, but he's been off the pace a little bit. I mean, not by much, but I'm not sure that his outright pace has been masked by some troubles yesterday. Spent a lot of time in the garage most of the session. Just got out for one run right at the end of the session on the soft tyres. I wonder if the surprise could be that he could just sneak pole. So I think my money's possibly still on Verstappen.
OK, teams are getting ready, cars are getting ready to go out. A minute and a half until the session gets underway with a green light. And I think there is a great sense of anticipation here in Singapore. They've waited a long time for Formula One to come back here. Thousands of fans have poured into Singapore. My flight was just full of fans who wanted a little bit of this action, who wanted a little bit of the spotlight shining down on the circuit. Jack, the cars are certainly the ones that have the metallic paint rather than the matte. They look beautiful in these spotlights.
Well, I just declared it bone dry, but Hamilton's sitting on intermediates at the end of the pit lane, and so is George Russell. So that's a bit of an interesting turn. Yeah, the cars look great under the lights, no doubt about it, though.
Well, this could be high drama already. Mercedes lining up ready to go out. Let's hand over to you, Jack, and we can get this qualifying session underway.
So as I say, the Mercedes there at the end of the pit lane, all the sort of shots of around the track that I've seen, it's I mean, maybe it's not bone dry. It's a bit wet offline, certainly in some of the runoff areas, but we'll see what happens when the session begins in 15 seconds time. I'll give you a sync for those of you watching along, but this is the battle for pole position at the Singapore Grand Prix. Race gets underway in 23 hours time, tomorrow afternoon or evening, and everybody's there on the intermediates. I'm really curious as to how long they're going to be on these intermediate tyres, Mark?
Well, it's got to be an exploratory lap, this. It does look like it's potentially damp, but there's certainly no standing water. It's not been raining for quite some time now as they leave the pit lane, led by George Russell in the Mercedes at the front of that queue. And he's just teetering his way around. This is going to be exploratory because the only running they've done today, and in fact there are some puddles still at fairly crucial parts right on the apex of that first corner. It's going to be exploratory just to find out where the grip levels are, so perhaps the safest way to do that at this stage is on the intermediate tyres.
Yeah, so he's coming down. It's pretty dry so far. He's now coming down the back straight through the right-hander of turn 5, which is, I mean, there's a little bit of spray there on the left-hand side under some of the bridges. It's bone dry at turn 5. This is slicks all day long, I think. So I think we'll see them coming straight back in and putting the slick tyres on. But here we go. It's getting a bit damp up here at 8 and 9. And that is a bit damp up there. This is quite tricky.
It is tricky. It's right on the cusp. There's half a lap where you definitely want slick tyres, and there's probably a section of the lap where if you are on slick tyres, you're really going to struggle. And I think what it's going to take is a few laps with cars on intermediates to clear that water away very quickly, though, with no more rain predicted. I'm sure we're going to be able to slick tyres. And these laps at the moment are almost futile from a learning point of view, certainly from a lap time point of view, but they may well have the effect of turning that circuit very quickly into a full dry one.
Now, the bit where it was a bit damp was at sort of 8 and 9, and that's where you then come back to at turn 13. We're watching Lando Norris coming up to, not 13, 16, I should say. Norris is just coming up to the Anderson Bridge, and again, it's dry. Here's Norris's radio.
Still a bit too damp. I would say at the minute, I think it's okay.
So Norris saying it's still a bit too damp, and it's really patchy dampness, isn't it? This is really quite... I've never quite seen a track like this, I feel. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like Spa in the olden days, where everyone used to say, oh, it's wet at one end, dry at the other, but I've never seen that happen. But certainly around the start-finish straight now, it's completely dry. So interesting choices for the teams to make here. Jenny?
Yeah, really interesting, and also the timing of this. There's obviously about 15 minutes left on this session, but you don't want to get caught out. If someone does go into the barrier, you just want to bank a lap, really, don't you? Because this is a high danger session. You feel a high risk session.
Yeah, I think we certainly could see a yellow flag here or there, as Russell is the first driver then to start a flying lap on the intermediates. Everybody's going out on the intermediate tyre, and again just that little bit of spray from underneath the Mercedes as he comes through turn 5, then it comes to the turn 4, then into the dry left-hander of turn 5. Hamilton half a second quicker than Russell in the first sector. 15 minutes and 4 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, 0. There's your 15-minute sync up.
The problem they've got here is that it's so dangerous on those few sections that are wet. If you're on a slick tyre, you have no grip. The slick tyre, I mean, it's just that, it's slick. It's got no means for dispersing water. And what happens is, if you run over a puddle, you literally skate across the top of that puddle because the water can't go anywhere. The grooves in the intermediate tyre and the full wet tyre are there to channel that water away from underneath the tyre, allowing the rubber of the tyre to make contact with the ground, which is where you get your grip from. If it's wet and you're on a slick tyre going into a critical braking zone or at the apex of a corner, you've got no means to make contact with the tarmac, and you will just slide, and that could see you very quickly into a wall.
Right, the Hasses are out on slicks. Oh, it's really damp. So basically it's that middle part of the lap, turns 8 and 9, and then turns 16 and 17. That's where it's really kind of concentrated dampness. And those are the bits of the track that go right next to each other. So that's where the Hasses might struggle a little bit. Magnussen and Schumacher out on the softs, but I guess their thinking is they're in the battle to get out of Q1, and so take a bit of a gamble, perhaps. Across the line comes Russell, and it's a 1 minute 57.0 for him, a 56.9 for Hamilton. So those are the first lap times on the board for the two Mercedes drivers.
Yeah, so still considerably quicker than we had this morning when it was full wet, but still a good, what's that, 15 seconds off what we had yesterday in the dry. So they're a long way from any sort of realistic lap time, but I imagine without any rain falling right now, these lap times are going to be tumbling down. And this is going to be a race to see who can be on track last at the end of this session, because in theory this track is going to start ramping up, and the fastest lap time in theory will come with the last guy to cross the line, or that's the most potential to come from a lap time at that stage.
13 minutes and 6 seconds to go. Yuki Tsunoda 1.7 seconds slower than Hamilton. Schumacher and Magnussen are just coming around the final 2 corners now, so we'll keep an eye out on them, although the timing screen's now saying that they might be on the intermediate tyres, so that has just changed. Yes, they are on intermediates actually, so they're on the intermediate tyres, so everybody's out on the inters at the moment. 12 minutes and 40 seconds to go, and Hamilton quickest, Russell second. Sainz is just coming through the middle sector. Leclerc's about to come through sector 1, and the Ferrari of Leclerc is a quarter of a second up on Lewis Hamilton in the first sector, and then Carlos Sainz is 4 tenths down on Hamilton after the middle sector. So lots of understeer for Leclerc as he tried to get that turned in. Ocon goes up to third quickest.
Yeah, this timing table is going to be changing quicker than anyone can keep up with it, I'd imagine, through this session. But as I say, it's going to be a sort of tactical race to find yourself on track at the right time, and that means it's going to get very, very busy at the end of this session with all 20 cars vying for a track position as Russell goes quickest ahead of his teammate Hamilton by a second. That's how quickly the lap times are falling. So it's really going to be about how the team places you out on circuit, at what time, and what gaps you can find in amongst the traffic.
Through the final corner comes Carlos Sainz. He goes 4th quickest, 2.3 seconds down on Russell, but Leclerc is going quicker than Russell after the middle sector. The Ferrari engine is the sound you can hear now. Gasly goes up into 5th place. Still only 8 drivers have set a lap time. Latifi the slowest at the moment, 5 seconds away. Bottas and Zhou are on an outlap in the Alfa Romeos. Stroll goes up into 3rd place now, just a 10th slower than Hamilton. Hamilton has just started another lap after doing a cool-down lap by the looks of things, as Leclerc gets on the power out towards the final 2 corners. Verstappen is 1.2 seconds up after the middle sector. Here comes Leclerc across the line. He goes quickest on a 1 minute 55.054. Verstappen and Perez are both in the final sector where there is a yellow flag, so they have to back off potentially, and Verstappen has had to back off because of the yellow flag, which I think may have been Schumacher potentially going off the road, but we'll wait and see about that one. But yellow flag is out, was out, so that compromised them. Perez, I don't think, had come across it, so he's still pushing Sergio Perez. He could jump up the order here. His first sector and middle sector. His first sector was the fastest of anyone. Middle sector was half a second slower than Verstappen. Through the final corners they come and out across the line, and Perez goes 3rd fastest, a second slower than Charles Leclerc. And another yellow flag out in sector 2, but the track goes green quite quickly.
Yeah, and we're going to see this all the way through the session, I'm sure. Yellow flags, potentially even worse than that, potentially session stoppages. Don't forget, in qualifying, they do have the potential to stop the session, stopping the clock, and then restart it once the track clear. That's not something that happens in practice sessions, but in qualifying, that is the case. And yeah, everybody really struggling. Charles Leclerc having a bit of moment, having to escape down the runoff area, staying out the barriers, little donut to get his car back on circuit, but it's very, very treacherous in certain parts of this lap.
Yeah, it was turn 14 for Charles Leclerc, as we've got 9.5 minutes to go. Through comes Hamilton to go quicker still on a 1 minute 54.689 now then. So Hamilton goes to the top of the times. Leclerc second, 3 tenths back. Sainz third, 3 tenths back. Russell 4th. Verstappen starting another lap. Yeah, now Verstappen has just started another lap as he comes through the first couple of corners. Norris goes up into 6th place. Jenny Gao.
Speaking of the drivers ahead of this session, a lot of them were saying qualifying in Singapore is the toughest challenge you can get. It's tougher than Monaco even, which we know is extraordinarily tough. But with it being slightly wet, slightly drying, puddles in some places, the concentration these 20 drivers are going to be using around this circuit right now is unbelievable.
Leclerc, I think, has been off again, this time at turn 8. Zhou's on a reasonable lap. Latifi jumps up into 13th position, and Hamilton is still quickest. Leclerc second, Sainz third, Russell 4th, Perez 5th. Norris, Stroll, Ocon, Vettel and Tsunoda the top 10 at the moment. Then it's Alonso, Gasly, Albon, Latifi and Ricciardo the top 15. Eliminated as it stands. There goes Verstappen to the top of the times meanwhile. So Verstappen goes quickest on a 1 minute 54.395, 3 tenths quicker than Hamilton. and Zhou coming around the final couple of corners, but Verstappen now to the top of the times.
And the big question is going to be, is somebody going to be brave enough, with 8 minutes and 8 seconds left on the clock of this first part of qualifying, is somebody going to be brave enough to throw on a set of slick tyres and go for it? Because if you do get to that sort of crossover point, and it's a tough one for the guys at the front, but you might find somebody on the cusp of making it into Q2 or not, it might be worth the risk. But of course, everybody will have very close eyes on those, and if it does work out, if you do manage to find an advantage on slick tyres, that advantage could be seconds.
How are conditions, Max?
Yeah, well, it's still inters.
Okay, understood. That's first question answered.
So Verstappen saying it's still intermediate tyres, but as you say, it's that, you know, are you an Albon who wants to take a gamble? Both Hasses have come back into the pits at the moment. The sound you can hear is Pierre Gasly coming out across the line. He goes up into 9th place in the Alpha Tauri. Little yellow flag in Sector 3, but that's now gone away. Stroll coming through the final few corners. It's really, really damp further back, isn't it? Stroll at the moment is on a reasonable lap, trying to beat Verstappen's time, or trying to get near Verstappen's time. He's not trying to beat it, obviously. A little bit too far adrift as Stroll goes up to the wall on the exit of the penultimate corner, swings it, and looked like he was getting a bit wide there and maybe got on the wet stuff, but he still managed to go into 5th place, Lance Stroll. So those Aston Martins looking quick again.
They really are, yeah. And actually Stroll, the one of the 2 Aston Martin drivers who looking quickest right now, as Leclerc goes back to the top of the timesheets, just over a tenth and a half quicker than Max Verstappen. Yeah, the Aston Martin's coming alive around this circuit, and it's Stroll rather than Vettel that seems the most comfortable so far this weekend.
Sound you can hear is Valtteri Bottas coming across the line in the Alfa Romeo. He jumps up into 12th place. So Albon, Latifi and Ricciardo, the drivers who would be eliminated with Magnussen and Schumacher at the moment. And they're on outlaps now, Magnussen and Schumacher. Jenny?
Drama down here. Alex Albon's managed to miss the weighbridge. He's gone straight past it, slammed on the brakes, not quite in time. So at the moment, the FIA are trying to manoeuvre that Williams car back onto the scales, but this is going to hamper their qualifying session hugely.
Perez now jumps up into 3rd position. Not ideal for Alex Albon. Max Verstappen has just got quite badly held up by his teammate at the final corner.
I was pushing. You thought you'd abort it.
Sorry, I got that the wrong way around. So that we saw that much earlier, actually, in the session. Perez was caught up behind Verstappen. Verstappen aborted for the yellow flag, and then Perez caught up to the back of him. So that's what happened there, and that cost him a bit of time. Whoa! Verstappen had a big moment at turn 9. Jenny?
Yeah, I think Mercedes has just come in and gone on to slicks, if my eyes don't serve me wrong. I'm standing quite far away, so you'll have to clarify that for me. But both cars coming in, Hamilton in now.
OK, we'll keep an eye on it. Alex Albon, meanwhile, before he missed the weighbridge, went straight on at turn 18, which takes him underneath the grandstand. Hamilton had a huge slide at turn 2 and had to save that one in quite a dramatic style as he manages to keep it going out there. He's 5th quickest, Russell is 7th quickest, and haven't seen yet, he's on an outlap. It doesn't look as though the timing screens don't say he's on slick tyres just yet. At the moment, eliminated would be Albon, Latifi, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Schumacher. Magnussen and Schumacher still yet to get a lap on the board. Alonso goes up into 8th place. So the top 10, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Stroll, Russell, Alonso, Ocon and Zhou. And then the rest of the top 15 are Norris, Gasly, Vettel, Bottas and Tsunoda. 4 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, fascinating stuff now, because it really is getting to crunch point. So if you want to put slick tyres on, which is a massive gamble at this stage, you kind of got to do it now to give you any hope of getting back out onto those slick tyres, get some temperature in them. I think, quite honestly, we're probably not going to see it during this session by the look of it, unless somebody like a Hamilton wants to take a gamble. But it seems like a long stretch at this point. Maybe later in qualifying, we may well get onto them. But at the moment, people still finding improvement. Verstappen starting to go quicker. He's currently second, right behind Leclerc with not much in it. Those two trading blows so far through this session. Of course, this is just Q1 and the battle to get right through into Q2, the second part of this 3-part qualifying.
Yep. It does look as though Hamilton's gone out on a new set of intermediate tyres. Ricciardo jumps up into 12th position now, so that's just behind his teammate Lando Norris. Magnussen is up on Bottas's time. Schumacher is up on Bottas's time as well. Bottas is the one in in the danger zone at the moment in 15th place. So both Haas on quite a good run. Vettel all of a sudden has dropped down to 14th place, despite his teammate Lance Stroll being up there in 6th position. Leclerc still lapping on those intermediate tyres. 3 minutes on the clock. Here comes Kevin Magnussen into the final sequence of corners, and we'll see how far up the order he can jump. He'll have time to do another lap and then one more after that. So he'll have 2 to go at the end of this one, Kevin Magnussen. He goes 6th quickest. Only a second slower than Charles Leclerc. And I wonder, with these Haas drivers coming out on newer intermediates, whether they're going to be in better shape, because getting temperature, etc. is one thing, but actually if the track is really dry, you're taking life out of the intermediates and burning them up a bit much.
That's a good point, yeah. The dry parts of this circuit, which quite honestly is most of it, will be hurting the inters. It's only the wet parts where you really need them, but you really do need them to get that grip through those treacherous wet parts of the circuit. So it's a difficult, compromising set of circumstances. Big twitch for Alex Albon as he turns into turn 2 there. But yeah, difficult one for the teams and the drivers. And at this point, with just 2 minutes left, we're getting everybody starting to come back out to the circuit, and this is going to get busy. There's no more opportunity to get into the pits for fresh tyres now.
Leclerc improves again on that last lap. 2 minutes to go in the session. So Leclerc quickest, Verstappen second, Perez third, Sainz fourth, fifth for Hamilton. Albon is 3 tenths up on Ricciardo after sector 1, but Joe's just jumped up into 7th place. So, another really wrestling with the car here, Alex Albon, to try and coax it around the circuit. But it's all going to be about, I think, setting your lap time at the last possible moment, because the track is just getting better and better. Latifi jumps up into 18th place, gets ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda's 3 tenths up, though, on Ricciardo's time, which is the benchmark time at the moment in 15th position, as Albon comes over the Anderson Bridge and then into the tight left-hander of turn 13. Everybody out there on intermediates still. Albon after the middle sector compared to Daniel Ricciardo, who's 15th. Albon is 3 tenths up. Russell goes up into 5th position. So this is going to be tight for Albon, and everybody else behind him is going to be wanting to improve as well.
Ricciardo's jumped up to 12th, so that puts him in a position of relative safety at this point. But it's all going to change rapidly as the clock ticks down with 45 seconds left. We've got everybody now out on the circuit. Finding a gap is also going to be tricky. Everybody just shaping up for their final laps, and this could really, really shuffle the order here as we go through. Max Verstappen for the fastest... sorry, that's not, is it? Max Verstappen the fastest first sector.
Yeah, Hamilton's just set the fastest lap time, though. So Hamilton's just gone to the top of the times on a 1 minute 53.1. But Albon only goes up to 16th place. So Albon, unless he has one more lap in him, but I'd be surprised if he does in these conditions, is going to be eliminated potentially. Alonso jumps up into 8th position. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri through the final couple of corners. Tsunoda currently 20th. He goes up into 8th place. So Tsunoda surely will advance through. Ocon is now on the risk.
Daniel Ricciardo back in the drop zone.
Gasly goes up into 11th place. Ricciardo through the middle sector is 2 tenths up on Ocon's time, but everybody is improving. Schumacher is 15th now. Ocon is eliminated as it stands. Ocon, Ricciardo, Albon, Vettel and Latifi would be eliminated currently, but here comes Vettel into the final couple of corners, chucks it into the left-hander, out across the line. Does Vettel get through? Yes, he does, up into 11th place. So it's now Bottas who's at risk, and I think Stroll might be off in the other Aston Martin, because there's a yellow flag out there, and I think it's Stroll at turn 8. Verstappen goes fastest, a 1 minute 53.0. Stroll's got going again, but that could have scuppered a lot of drivers' lap times. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo. He is currently 18th fastest, gets on the power, out across the line, and he only goes 16th. Ricciardo eliminated in Q1. Schumacher, I don't think Schumacher is improving, but has he been caught out by the yellow flag in the middle sector? I don't think he has, because he's not that far around the lap. So Schumacher has the chance to push Bottas out. Alex Albon is not improving, so it's going to be Schumacher or Bottas that will advance through to the next part of qualifying, and Schumacher is a 10th up on Valtteri Bottas. He's the second of the 2 Haas cars. Kevin Magnussen is improving, but he's up in 7th place, so it doesn't really matter. It's all about Mick Schumacher in the Haas. It'll be he or Valtteri Bottas that'll get knocked out here.
Yeah, and he's squirming his way through the wet part, the middle part of the circuit. Comes under the grandstand, manages to keep it under control. A little bit of traffic ahead of him now. He's got to negotiate that and get safely through this final part. But he's on course to be there or thereabouts. Valtteri Bottas in the pit, so all he can do is watch on. And here he comes then, Schumacher through the final 2 corners. What's he got?
Is this enough to send him into the second part of qualifying? Across the line it is. Schumacher makes it through. Bottas eliminated in 16th, Ricciardo eliminated in 17th, 18th for Ocon, 19th for Albon, 20th for Nicholas Latifi. That's a big shocker. That's a big problem for Ricciardo. Not really surprising anymore. Bottas and Norris only 15th, so bad for McLaren. And actually, it's McLaren versus Alpine for that fight in the Constructors' Championship, and they're both struggling.
Yeah, exactly. Norris only 15th. I mean, that he's scraped through there, but that is not a good sign of where the car's performance is, with a huge update on Norris's car, just a couple of slots further up than Daniel Ricciardo. But yes, Esteban Ocon down in 18th when his teammate Alonso up inside the top 10 in 9th. So they needed to, were hoping for better things this weekend from both of those drivers. And actually, Ocon has looked better than that at many points over the weekend so far. So disappointing.
Good job from Joe.
Very good.
The brakes, guys. No brakes. That lap.
No brakes. I presume no brake temperature is more what he's referring to.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt you. This is a big braking circuit. It's all about big stops, then big traction zones out of these 90-degree corners. If you're not confident on the brakes, it massively hurts your lap time. So, yeah, OK, that may go some way to explaining Ocon's lowly position of 18th.
Albon in the end a second away from getting through. Still 7/10 quicker than Nicholas Latifi, though. Jenny?
Yeah, just looking at Mick Schumacher, he's really fighting for his chance to stay in Formula One right now. And a 14th place, getting out of the first part of qualifying, is a great job from him. Speaking to people in the paddock, they reckon it's a 50-50 chance of whether he can keep his seat. I know Nico Hülkenberg is in contention for that one as well, that name floating around, but good job from Schumacher. Excellently executed in very difficult conditions.
Yeah, not bad from Schumacher. 7/10 slower than his teammate Kevin Magnussen in the end, which is still always the sort of... and in fact, I think it might have been more than that come the end of the session. 6/10, my apologies. But we're just getting a replay of Sebastian Vettel. Oh, just had no purchase as he came into turn 14 there.
Yeah, it's one of those frustratingly slow, almost an accident, with understeer, and then a little kick of oversteer that almost touched the wall. I think may have even done so. But he manages to get to the end of the lap, unfortunately. Not fast enough.
No, absolutely. So, second part of qualifying coming up, and Stroll up there in a strong position to try and get through, potentially. Alonso will want to get through in the Alpine because he was only 9th quickest in that session in the end, Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, you talk about the big battle between Alpine and McLaren. Both teams bringing relatively significant upgrades. Of course, we've said already that McLaren have only got them on Norris's car, but Alpine also bringing parts of that car. And it looks at the moment, that surprise for Ocon being where he finished with a potential brake problem, but actually it looked like it was Alpine that perhaps have made the biggest step forward with the parts they brought to the car. Jenny?
Just having a look at Max Verstappen, and he's lost so much run time this weekend, yet he still comes out there and still puts the car in provisional pole position, setting the fastest time of anybody out there in that session. He is just so impressive, and I know a lot of the talk this weekend has been about Red Bull and cost caps and things like that, but I don't think we should let that overshadow the fact that he is on the verge of his second world title, and we're only in round 17, and he's driven gloriously this year.
Yep, been a strong year for Max Verstappen, and he'd love to just keep winning till the end of the season, I suppose, wouldn't he? Having won so many races this season. We'll see what he can do, though, when it matters in Q3, because there was a lot of... Everyone was running sort of different programs, I think, of the front runners, because Mercedes came in to put some new tyres on. I don't think anybody else... No, Verstappen put a new set on, but Ferrari didn't, for example. So And I'm really interested to see how long we're going to be on intermediates for, because I'm surprised it hasn't dried up a bit more.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be I don't think we're going to make it to the end of Q2 without somebody just having a little go, having a gamble. The more cars, of course, that run, the quicker it does start to dry up. That's by far the best way to dry any racetrack, is to throw a bunch of Formula 1 cars around it quickly. So let's see.
It's just so humid down here in the pit lane, I can assure you. It is, I mean, it's late at night now. It's almost 9:30 in the evening, so there's no sun because it's dark, but it is so humid, and there are still puddles here in the pit lane that just haven't dried up. It's like the water's just sitting around, doing nothing, staying where it is.
It's remaining wet.
Exactly.
So, second part of qualifying about to get underway. Everybody very keen to get out. The two Ferraris almost, not almost coming together, but not far off coming together as they were released from the pit lane. But that'll be interesting to see what tyres they go out on this in this second part of this session as well. Whether they're going out on brand new sets. Magnussen's going out on a used set. Alonso is going out on a new set. So is Zhou. Sainz is going out on the same set of tyres that he's going out on a new set as well. So that's the thing, because if you're on intermediates the whole way through, but it's getting to this level of dry and you're eating them up that much, then maybe that sort of usage of intermediates could be a bit tricky.
Yeah, that's right. And it's such a sort of, it's not an exact science, this whole tyre thing in these conditions. It really is a lot about feel. And as the conditions change and the track evolves so rapidly with the sort of circuit drying and people clearing water, as a team and as a driver, you've got to be on top of that. You've got to evolve your car with it. You've got to make your decisions on the fly, and you've got to get them right. And if you get them wrong, and just the wrong side of a very fine line, it can make a massive difference to where you finish in the order.
So Sainz out on circuit, and he is the first of sort of the front runners out on track in that Ferrari. The fight to get into the top 10 pole position shootout, and everybody has left the pits now bar Sergio Perez. Perez joins the circuit now, and everybody's on track. So Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Magnussen, Vettel and Schumacher have all gone out on a used set of intermediate tyres. Only 3 laps on them, apart from Vettel, who's done 5. Everybody else is out on a new set of tyres.
It sort of feels like there's some sense in both of those options, of course, because the first laps of this session they're fairly exploratory. They are just understanding where your car now sits. We've had a few minutes since the last session. Doesn't sound like very long, but it can change the way the cars behave on this circuit. Temperatures have changed. You've got to get temperature back into those tyres to make them work properly. So a used set is often not a bad way to go, just to get your driver in the groove.
It's drying up quickly.
Understood.
There you go. Charles Leclerc giving us the information we desperately wanted to hear. It's drying up quickly, he says, and that will only accelerate now we've got cars on track. So, yeah, I'm convinced that somebody's going to take the plunge and go slick tyres before this session's out.
This session, as in Q2, or qualifying?
Yeah,
you think Q2?
This session, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Stick my neck on the line. Someone's going to do it.
I like it. Are you a risk taker in life, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
12 minutes to go. Lap times then starting to come in, and or starting to be set, because Sainz is first out on circuit on the intermediates as he comes through the right-hander now. That's the sound you can hear in the Ferrari. Up to 160 miles an hour, 170 miles an hour, 180. He just about hits before getting onto the brakes into the left-hander of turn 5. 30.9 in sector 1 for Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc is quicker by quite a margin, actually, in that first sector. So that's a very good first sector from Charles Leclerc.
Those differences can be all about what your out lap was like. You know, how did you prepare your tyres on the out lap before you start your timed lap? And, you know, we keep banging on about tyre temperature, but it's so important. It literally transforms the way your car behaves by a massive amount. And the preparatory lap, the out lap, how much heavy braking you do, whether you do a few wheel spins to get temperature in the rears, how much weaving you do, and on certain parts of the track, all play into, and that's very carefully and scientifically monitored and prepared. The drivers know exactly how and where to do those things, how many burnouts, how long they should do burnouts for. It's not a sort of a guesswork. This is exact science. So if you've got that right, it can transform your flying lap.
Leclerc is quicker than Sainz in the middle sector as well, but the fastest first sector has just come in, I think, from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. So Verstappen going quickly also. 10.5 minutes to go in this second part of qualifying. Carlos Sainz is going to set the benchmark time. He turns now left through turn 20. Has he backed off? Looked like he was taking it quite steady through those last couple of corners. Maybe not. Here comes Sainz now out across the line, and it is a 58.8. So yeah, I think he must have backed off, because Leclerc does a 52.3. Something looked like he was going really, really steady, Sainz, after those final couple of corners. Verstappen has done the fastest first sector of anyone. Reasonable middle sector. Hamilton goes up to second quickest. Norris is third. Russell only goes to seventh, 3.2 seconds away. And the sound you can hear now is Max Verstappen. Stroll goes up into fifth place. Verstappen attacking the curbs as he comes into the grandstand section.
It's a really difficult decision, you know, for everything I've just said about somebody taking the gamble to go onto slicks. When you do that, and whoever does do that first is going to have a treacherous time on just a few key parts of this circuit. Let's see Verstappen then coming out the final corner and onto the start-finish straight, crosses the line. Do we see a lap time from Verstappen? 1:52. He's nearly 4 tenths off Charles Leclerc. So yeah, not too far behind.
Perez slots into third place, so they are quicker than Hamilton, who is in fourth position. Fifth is Lando Norris. 9 minutes on the clock. Carlos Sainz is the sound you can hear as he tries to go again, Sainz, and he is improving this time through. So gets onto the brakes, into the right-hander of turn. Oh, big slide as he comes through 14, and now around into 15 and 16. On the power again. Another little correction for Sainz, who had a big moment yesterday. Now a couple more corners to go for the Spaniard, and we'll see whether he can jump up towards Leclerc and get ahead of those Red Bulls, or whether he's going to be sort of in the mix with them. Into the final two corners now. Sainz across the line. Fourth. Slower than Leclerc by 1.1 seconds still. That's a big old gap.
It is a big old gap. Yeah, huge, in fact. When you're measured directly against your teammate, that's not the sort of lap time you want to be seeing, but that's massive. Over a second difference in the same car is huge.
Less than 8 minutes to go. Russell 13th. Here's Leclerc's radio.
And let me know track conditions.
It's tricky to say, it looks dry. There are just some parts of the track that are wet, which makes it very, very risky.
Who's going to take the risk? That's the question, Jenny.
Well, George Russell just took a risk. He was coming into the pit lane. He was just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, got called to the weighbridge, slammed on the brakes. The apron for this pit lane is still very wet, and it just locked up all the tyres, and he went crashing delicately, but crashing into the cone that was blocking his way onto the scales. So just got stopped in time. He's now been released to go. They were trying to sort of double stack the cars so that they could get them back out again quickly. So a little delay for Russell. Hamilton already out on another set of those intermediate tyres.
Does it matter where you are? So Russell is Mr. Risky, right? We remember that from Schumacher's had a little off. Russell had a little off a moment ago. But we remember that from Canada, where Russell just went for it on the slicks. I think it was Canada, in the fight for pole. But if you're Russell or Red Bull or Ferrari, you're not gambling it in Q2, are you?
No, not with 6.5 minutes to go, probably not. But the problem is the difference between a dry tyre and a wet tyre, if the dry tyre works, is enormous. And although you might look at the guys at the front and say, well, they're totally safe because all they've got to be is in the top 10 to get through into Q3, a giant lap on slick tyres that's working could start shaving seconds off your lap time, and so you become very quickly under threat. So it's more likely to be the likes of the Aston Martins, the Stroll and Vettel that are more likely to take a gamble at this point. But if that gamble pays off, it could genuinely threaten the leaders.
Fernando Alonso taking a huge chunk of curb. Here's Leclerc's radio.
And we box for slicks.
Oh, here
Copy,
we go.
Fox, understood.
Here we go.
Well, Leclerc's going for it then. Again, not that... And this is what I mean, is that why be if you're Leclerc, why be the first? You're quickest. Why be the first? Because let some of the back markers go, and then you've still got time to react and go out on slicks and be safe. But being the first,
yeah,
I mean, but again, you've still got 2.7 seconds back to Schumacher. So if the slicks don't work, you're not getting knocked out.
No, but that's normally a call that comes from the team, not the driver, because the team will want to cover off your position. So they'll get you out onto slicks, get them warmed up, so that if you need them, then you go for a push lap. And if you don't, you're right, you back off, you just save them. It's rare that actually a driver's willing to put himself into that risky position.
Box now, box, pit confirm, and we'll put New Winters. He will be tight.
New Inter's going on for Charles Leclerc
that's
then.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Overruled the driver. I mean, I'm surprised, if I'm honest. I'm surprised that they have... Yes, they see the risk factor. They don't want to risk at this stage, of course, the driver having an accident. And here we go. We've got an Aston Martin going out on soft tyres. Now we see what really happens.
Yeah, so that is Stroll going out on the softs and Vettel going out on the softs as well with less than 5 minutes to go. And this is the only thing that could be tight, is because Ferrari were the first to pit, everybody else is going to have the chance to pit behind them onto slicks, but we'll see what everybody decides to do. Very interesting final 4.5 minutes coming up here.
Yeah, it really is. The whole grid, the whole pit lane will be keeping a very close eye on those two Aston Martins. They need to now get round, get temperature in them, so pushing on the areas of the lap which are safe to do so, where there's grip, but being extra careful on those areas that are still treacherous. And it's things like curbs, it's the white painted lines, it's a street circuit, remember, manhole covers. Those things, if they're wet, will offer zero grip on a slick tyre.
I feel like everyone's got to... I don't know, because in a Grand Prix scenario, everybody watches to see whether the guy who's just gone on slicks is quick or not. And then, if he is quick, then you pit and you lose, a bit of... But you still got time. Here, you're running out of time. You haven't got time.
That's why I'm surprised at what Ferrari did in overruling their driver, in not just putting him out there, just in case he needs to do a lap on them.
Yeah, I think you're right here, Mark. 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Jenny Gao.
Perez has just been pushed back into his garage at Red Bull. Not quite sure what's going on, because usually they do a quick change in the pit lane and send them out again. So question marks down at Perez.
Well, both Red Bulls are in the pits. I think they seem fairly comfortable. Hamilton's just gone up into second place, but it depends if everybody's going out. Who is out on the softs then? It's still only the Astons. It's still only the Aston Martins that are out on soft tyres, I believe. So it's not as though the rest of the pack have all decided that's the right decision, let's go for it. And I'm surprised, to be honest, that like Haas, they're on an out lap now, but on a intermediate, I think. Zhou has gone out on the soft tyre, so we'll see how this works for them. It's a real borderline stuff here, I think.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it's going to threaten the front runners, so I think the likes of Verstappen and Perez are probably safe. Probably Charles Leclerc is also safe as well on those new intermediates. Even if he doesn't manage to improve, even if the slick tyre is the faster one, he's probably not going to get threatened with only the Aston Martins plus one other on the slick tyre. So he's probably safe at the front, but it's going to be fascinating to see just what the Astons can do here.
Just getting a replay of Lance Stroll coming over the Anderson Bridge and having a little bit of a correction. Oh, and then another correction into the... yeah, maybe this is too risky for the Aston Martins. And if it is, then they're kind of throwing away a really strong potential position here, considering how quick they've been all weekend.
Yeah, it's a good point, yeah. Yeah, they've been strong all weekend, and perhaps from a team perspective, you could have justified splitting that strategy.
Stroll's 1.6 seconds down after the first sector, and that's not even where it's wet. So this is tough, because, and I think I said this in free practice, every time they've had a quick car, wet qualifyings have happened, be it in Canada, be it, I think, Silverstone as well, and then they're nowhere, and they don't actually manage to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. I mean, he's a long way off. We had a couple of big moments already, but that's just really on a sort of outlap at first. And just as he starts to wind things up, he's got enough time for another flying lap after this one. Well, possibly not, in fact, because he's got to get round and recharge a battery. So perhaps not. Perhaps this is it.
And that was so scruffy through turn 13.
It's not working out for them, is it?
Stroll through the middle sector, and he is 3.6 seconds down on Charles Leclerc, so he's further away from Leclerc after the middle sector than Tsunoda is over the whole lap, and Tsunoda's the driver in 15th place. 1 minute and 5 seconds to go, eliminated at the moment would be Vettel, Schumacher, Magnussen, Zhou and Tsunoda, but everybody will be trying to improve in these closing stages.
Yeah, 50 seconds left to go. So everybody who's out on track now, that's it. Nobody's got time to get round and start another lap if you're in the pits. No one's got time to make any tyre changes. This is it. We've still got all eyes on the 2 Aston Martins, but it looks to me like that gamble is not going to pay off at the front. I think we're fairly settled with Charles Leclerc currently leading Max Verstappen.
So, what can Tsunoda do? He's half a second up on his teammate Pierre Gasly's time. Gasly is in 10th place at the moment, and he would be the first of the drivers eliminated if someone were to go quicker than him. Zhou saying on the Alfa Romeo, I have no grip, so slick's absolutely not the way to go, it seems. Sound you can hear is Mick Schumacher, who is trying to beat Pierre Gasly as well. Gasly himself is halfway through the first sector, so here comes Yuki Tsunoda. Checker flag is out now. As it stands, Vettel, Schumacher, Magnussen, Zhou, Tsunoda eliminated. Here comes Tsunoda though, in 15th place, out across the line. He goes up to 6th, so that pushes Gasly out, but Gasly is on a lap. Vettel is on a lap as well, and he is no, I don't think he is improving in his first sector. Schumacher's lap time compared to Stroll is going to be tight. Here comes Magnussen. Magnussen goes up into 8th place. Russell's down in 9th position, so Russell needs to make this lap work or he could be in danger. Alonso is just on the fastest middle sector of anybody. Schumacher fighting the car as he comes underneath the grandstand and down towards the final sequence of corners. Alonso is in danger here. Russell's in big danger. He needs a big lap. Norris goes 7th fastest. At the moment, Alonso is in 10th place. Through the final corner comes Mick Schumacher, out across the line, and Schumacher only goes 13th. Fernando Alonso is surely going to get ahead of Russell. What can Gasly do in the AlphaTauri? The Frenchman through the final 2 corners and across the line, and Gasly goes up into 6th place. Russell is in big danger here. He is, I think he might even have, he maybe have backed off. We'll see. He's down to 10th place now, and now he's down to 11th because Alonso goes up into 5th. Lance Stroll is still out there too, but he's far too far away. The tyres coming in a little bit towards the end. Ends 1.2 seconds slower than Magnussen, so he might still have slicks in the final part. But where is Russell on this lap? He's coming through the final section, and I think he's backed off.
Yeah,
I think Russell's out in 11th place. There he is. He takes the checkered flag.
And Russell, 1/1000th of a second,
misses out by 6/1000, and Mercedes eliminated in Q2. Hamilton up in 2nd.
Yeah, that is a shocking turn of events, really. I mean, really disappointing because we've already talked about how important this qualifying session is with a view to tomorrow's race. Overtaking around here is not easy, and that is the last thing that George Russell will have wanted, along with his Mercedes team, and also for Hamilton. Hamilton right up there in the mix this weekend. He could have really done with his teammate alongside him in that fight against the other big guns of Red Bull and Ferrari, but he's not going to have it.
What happened there for George Russell?
I think he's been struggling. He's been struggling generally. He seemed to have no grip. His laps that we saw were just, he was fighting the car all the way through. He's had a couple of moments all weekend, so he's not been particularly comfortable all the way, has he?
Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin ends up 14th, and he had a big lock-up into turn 5. Both Aston Martins not making it through to Q3 after they'd looked so strong. Big double front lockup for Vettel as he was out on the soft tyres. Steamed it down the escape road. So Russell out in 11th, Stroll in 12th, Schumacher 13th, Vettel 14th, Zhou 15th, and Magnussen making it through 0.3 quicker than Mick Schumacher. Here's Vettel's radio.
We're out. It's too early for the rise. Copy that.
So Vettel saying it was too early for dries, and you wonder if that's an Aston Martin decision, because the fact that both drivers did it and no other driver did.
Yeah, sorry guys, I couldn't do anything then. I really struggled. It's exactly the same issue with P1. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, Russell saying I really struggled. Interesting. Jenny?
Yeah, just looking at George Russell's start positions. 12th when he started Miami, round 5. 11th in Imola, which was round 4. And since then, since round 5, he hasn't started outside the top 10. This is going to be familiar territory from his Williams day, but not familiar territory from his Mercedes driving days.
No, absolutely not. So Russell eliminated. Battle for pole is going to be interesting. Leclerc ended that session almost 3-4 tenths quicker than Hamilton. Verstappen was only third quickest, but Perez found a bit of pace too. So the top four were separated by less than half a second, although I think Verstappen had gone out on a I think, did he do a run on a new set of tyres? No, he just went out on a new set and didn't do a lap on them. But very interesting fight for pole coming up. Schumacher eliminated, 3.5 tenths behind his teammate Kevin Magnussen. And another not bad run that for Schumacher, but not particularly impressive.
Also, I think what we did see from the Aston Martins going onto slick tyres was it was close. I don't think it was too far away, and we're very close to that crossover point now. And you know, almost certainly that's going to really play a factor in Q3 here, because you cannot afford at this stage to be on the wrong tyre at the right time. And I'm sure we're going to get to a point where the slick is the faster. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be risky. But, you know, this is where risk goes out the window, and it's all about getting the fastest lap time.
In your defence, you did say we'd be on slick tyres by the end of Q2. You didn't say it would be the right choice.
Absolutely, yeah. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
But you did say that, and so you were absolutely right. Absolutely correct.
Well, you know, you have to sometimes take a gamble. I mean, what's strange about the Aston Martin gamble, you know, I think you rightly suggest it could well be a team decision there with both drivers going on at the same time. Vettel's comments there it wasn't an apologetic comment on the radio as if I got it wrong. It was
a bit blamey,
wasn't it? That was the wrong time to go onto the tyres. So strange, because it's cost them. You know, they were on the brink of a good qualifying position just through general pure pace of their car. So if they'd managed to be on the right tyre at the right time, they had a car that's capable of delivering a top 10 finish, and that opportunity, of course, has now gone, having taken that risk.
Yeah. So, Gao?
Yeah, just having a look at Magnussen. I was speaking to him earlier on today, and he was saying that I said, what conditions would suit you best? And he said, yeah, well, wet would be good. I mean, I like dry, but wet would be fine. And actually, I think these conditions suit him perfectly in that Haas car. And he's pretty buoyed at the moment with how he's driving, how the car feels. And yeah, let's see what he can do. We've just been passed by George Russell, face of thunder on him. And that's unusual for George Russell. He's always normally so relatively upbeat, but he's not been looking comfortable all weekend. And I think that one's going to hurt for him.
Yeah, not getting into Q3 without any particularly notable incidents is a tough one for Russell. No real yellow flags or anything towards the end of that session either. So a challenge that for Russell,
especially on a weekend when actually their car looks to be in reasonable shape, doesn't it? So it's a potential opportunity that's slipped by as well.
So we have 1 minute until the final part of qualifying gets underway. And Red Bull are ready with slicks for Verstappen, heading straight out to the end of the pit lane with slick tyres on, and it looks as though they will maybe send him out for a sort of a couple of laps on those slick tyres. That the theory being they'll just kind of get better and better and better, I would guess.
It's going to be another one.
Ferrari have got slicks on as well, so everybody is like, no. That last lap, it was that last lap from Stroll, wasn't it? There was only 1.2 seconds off.
That's right.
What he needed to be, and that is the kind of time you can find with a couple more laps. So I think everybody's going to go out on slicks here.
Yeah, and again, even more so than last time, if this is the case, if everyone's going slicks, Ferrari making a last-minute change. So are they on Inters?
I think they were.
So Ferrari's sitting on Inters in the garage.
Is that Sainz?
Is
that Leclerc, yeah.
Let's go on soft, even if we need to lose time.
Okay, switch off the engine.
I thought I saw red under there, honestly, but it is the intermediates that were ready for Charles Leclerc, and he's come on the radio and said, nah, we're going on softs.
He's just seen Verstappen go out on a brand new set of softs.
Well, that'll probably be it, because he'll have the TV pictures ahead of him, once he sees that...
He doesn't want to be on an opposing tyre to his main rival. The championship may be a long shot for Charles Leclerc, but he still wants to win the race more than ever. So he wants to be on the same tyre, he wants to have the same opportunity, like everybody now, Hamilton as well, onto the brand new softs.
I did enjoy... So Sainz has already left the pits on softs, so I think it was the Sainz Ferrari that I saw that was on softs and ready to go, so I presumed both of them were, but Leclerc obviously wasn't. What I did enjoy was the number one mechanic at the front doing the the substitution signal when a player's injured or whatever, and you roll one hand over the other like sub ref.
Yeah,
that's what they did for the tyres. I've never seen that before. I like it. Is that common?
It's international sign language for changing tyres, obviously.
I guess so.
This is going to be interesting, because if everyone's now on these slick tyres, more so than ever, the lap times are going to start tumbling as the session goes on, and even more than the last session. This is going to be about being on track at the right moment, with the right tyre on, with it up to temperature, and delivering a lap time right at the close of this session.
And Tsunoda and Magnussen have gone out on the intermediate tyres, so they're still out on intermediates, which is quite interesting. Whether they're now on circuit going, ugh, whoops-a-daisy, better come into the pits at the end of this and put on a set of slick, because none of them are going to be, quite often in Q3, when you get a Magnussen or a Tsunoda, both AlphaTauris into Q3 as well, which is worth a shout-out. But when you get that scenario, they don't have enough soft tyres, so they have to go on a set of used. We're not in that scenario here. They've got soft tyres coming out from all angles, so they could have gone out on softs if they wanted. Here's Verstappen's radio.
Okay, just a reminder. Again, best of the conditions at the end.
So don't go crazy now and put it in the wall. Let's wait till the end of the session.
That's a very polite way of saying just take it easy, mate. We've got another 9.5 minutes to go here. Here he goes then. Verstappen crosses the line to start his lap on these slick tyres. A journey of discovery this will be as he launches into the first braking zone. Nicely under control, but you always leave a little bit on the table here, because you don't know what you've got, how much of the brake's going to bite, how much of the tyre's going to grip. You've got no idea at this stage, so every corner is a learning experience for him.
Verstappen coming now through the first sector, and he does a 30.9 in sector 1, so I think that's kind of reasonable. Carlos Sainz will be the next first sector split we get. He comes now up towards the left-hander of turn 5. It's a 30.3 for Magnussen, it's a 30.2 for Tsunoda, and it's a 31.1 for Sainz. So at the moment, the intermediate tyres are still quicker, but what will be the case in less than 9 minutes?
Yeah, the times are going to be tumbling, really tumbling quickly, and this is about learning the track. This is about understanding what your car does. It's not necessarily the lap that's going to determine where you start on the grid tomorrow afternoon. This is going to be about understanding whether your car can handle it, as a driver, what you have to do to get the best out of them, and it'll be the end of the session where it really counts.
Verstappen through the middle sector now does a 44.6, but I'm most interested in Tsunoda and Magnussen's times through the middle sector, to be honest. Hamilton's just on the fastest first sector of anyone, so Hamilton has found some pace out there on the soft tyres. Tsunoda is 0.2 down on Verstappen in the middle sector, and Magnussen is about 5 seconds down, so he must have backed off. So I think it is coming to the slick tyres now, especially after a couple more laps. 8 minutes to go.
Massive snap of oversteer for Verstappen. Massive snap. He managed to hang on to it, but he's coming through the final corner now. We'll get a read on his lap time. I don't expect it to set the world alight just yet, but there he goes, a 1:56.9. 1:56.9 for Verstappen. Perez will be next.
So through the final corners they come. Verstappen has done that first lap time. Perez sounds like he's backed off.
He does, yeah.
Hamilton is going quicker than Verstappen at the moment, with 7.5 minutes to go, and Tsunoda goes quicker. Tsunoda goes quicker than Verstappen by 2 seconds. So it's still going to be tight. Hamilton is going quicker than Tsunoda though, and Verstappen has just set a personal best in sector 1, so maybe on that first lap they didn't use battery deployment or something like that, so that they didn't have to do a cool down lap and a recharge.
Yeah, there may be some of that going on, but also the tiniest mistake. When you're on slicks, you can make tiny mistakes. A sort of snap of oversteer for Verstappen. That massively, of course, changes your lap time as Hamilton goes quickest with a 1:53.0.
That's 2 seconds quicker than Tsunoda, 2.5 quicker than Leclerc, 4 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. What a lap that is from Lewis Hamilton.
There's your answer. We now know what the quickest tyre is, and by some margin, it is the slick tyre. Expect everyone, Tsunoda and Magnussen, to ditch those intermediates and get onto the slicks very quickly.
Jenny?
Yeah, Magnussen's already come into the pits, so I expect him to change. Tsunoda maybe coming in to the only driver in the top 6, by the way, who hasn't yet got a pole position, is the man currently in provisional pole, Lewis Hamilton.
And He is a 1 minute 53.0 at the moment, but he's improving on this lap. Leclerc is improving also. Verstappen is improving, but he's not particularly challenging Hamilton at the moment. Fernando Alonso is on a very quick lap as he comes through the middle sector now. Alonso, this is going to be very, very tight with 6 minutes to go. This is only, of course, the first run in this second part of in this final part of qualifying. Verstappen goes second, 1.2 seconds away from Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc's a 10th up on Hamilton after sector 2. Hamilton's 1.2 seconds up on his own previous best after the middle sector. Hamilton is flying out there.
So that is all about tyre temperature. It's all about getting into the groove, getting confident in the car, as we said before. What's Hamilton going to be able to do when they switch tyres, when they stick a new set on?
Norris second in the McLaren.
And this is going to be changing quicker than anyone can keep up with, I'm sure, as the times start tumbling. Perez goes third, Verstappen still fourth, but 1.2 seconds off the lead as Alonso goes quickest. Fernando
Alonso on provisional pole in Singapore, but here comes Hamilton, surely set to beat him. Leclerc now goes to provisional pole at 51.8, 6 tenths quicker than Alonso, but Hamilton's back to the top, 8 tenths quicker than Charles Leclerc. Now, do you pit? 5 minutes to go. Do you pit or do you stay out on these tyres? That's going to be a really interesting question, I think. Yellow flag out in the third sector. Perez is on a lap at the moment. They're coming through the left-hander now down towards turn 13. It's Gasly's gone straight on at turn 18. He reverses up the road and then gets going again.
It's going to get in the way of Verstappen's lap. Verstappen on a quick lap. Oh, it's gone green just in time for Verstappen to get there, I think.
Yeah, that was a very, very close one. Verstappen, but he has a big moment as he comes into the right-hander of 16. Really, as soon as he's offline, he then loses all grip, as Mark was saying. So this isn't... Well, it's still all right for Verstappen as he comes through into the final sequence of corners. He's improving at the moment. Is it going to be enough for provisional pole position? Huge moment for Verstappen. He saves it. He keeps it out of the wall. But I think that means it won't be provisional pole. It's second place for Verstappen. 3 tenths slower than Hamilton. It would have been pole, not for a massive moment coming into the final couple of corners. Perez is improving. Sainz is improving. Are they going to pit and go out on a new set of tyres?
I think you have to. There's so much more time on the table for Verstappen there. We saw a couple of big moments. That massive one just before the end of the lap must have cost him half a second, you'd have thought. And he's 3.5 tenths behind Hamilton. I think there's so much more lap time in that Red Bull car.
Perez goes up into third place. Ferrari now a 4th and 5th, Jenny.
And the mechanics is standing by with a new set of tyres at Ferrari.
Well, Leclerc is on a... Sainz has just started a lap. I think he's made a mistake at turns 1 and 2, so he has lost ground. Oh no, he's just about managed to improve in sector 1, but with 3 minutes to go, they won't be pitting. Is Hamilton going to pit? No. Hamilton stays out and goes for another lap, so I don't think we're going to get any pit stops here. Everybody's just going to be going for it. That could give a bit of a chance to Magnussen and Tsunoda, because they're going to be a little bit later out on fresher tyres potentially. Magnussen coming through the middle sector, 43.5 for him in the middle. He's actually miles away from Hamilton because, okay, they've got new tyres, but they're also not used to where the track grip is. Less than 3 minutes to go. The grid provisionally: Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, the top 5, Alonso, Norris, Magnussen, Tsunoda and Gasly, the top 10. Hamilton is not improving on this lap.
This is great stuff, isn't it? This is exactly what we want from a Formula 1 qualifying session in Singapore. Going from wet to dry, under the lights, the grip levels changing dramatically between the start of the session and the end. And we have, with just over 2 minutes to go, probably one more flying lap for all of the main contenders.
And Leclerc's doing his now. Leclerc is absolutely on a flying lap now. He's coming through the middle sector, as you say, 2 minutes to go, so he would get another lap out of this, but I don't think he will, because I think this is it now or never for Leclerc. Verstappen is starting his final flyer. I think Hamilton's on a coolish lap at the moment. Let's see what he does when he comes through the middle sector. 47, yeah. Hamilton's going to be the last driver to set a lap time. He is, at the moment, coming into the final sector. Whoa, moment for Leclerc as he has to correct, heading towards the wall. Verstappen comes through sector 1, and he is... Wow, he's half a second quicker than Leclerc in sector 1 alone. Huge first sector for Verstappen. Here's Leclerc's radio.
And last lap will be important. Track is drying.
Well, there's a message I don't think he needed to hear. I think he knows that. But Leclerc's gone early, hasn't he? Because Verstappen's going to follow him round, and then Hamilton's going to follow the pair of them and be the last man to cross the line and set a lap. And that could be a big advantage with the circuit getting quicker and quicker and quicker.
Leclerc goes to the top, 1.3 seconds quicker than Alonso, who's jumped up into second place. Verstappen is fighting the car as he comes out of turn 13 through the middle sector split. How is he doing compared to Charles Leclerc? He's up by 7/10. Neat and tidy final sector here, and Verstappen should be ahead of Leclerc and on provisional pole. Hamilton is just starting his final lap now. Oh, that's deep for Verstappen. He got it stopped, I think.
Yeah, it cost him time though. Yeah, a lot of understeer, couldn't get it stopped on the brakes. Managed to get through the corner though, and he's still up by a long way as he comes on. Has he backed off?
I think he has.
Oh,
he's going to go for one more.
That was a monster lap. Has he got time?
Well, he has, but how much energy has he got in the battery and things like that?
He must have depleted his battery. He's got 20 seconds on the clock. He's just coming towards the end of the lap, so he can do it. And maybe, as we said, the jump up in track grip for the final seconds is worth costing him not being able to deploy his full battery. Leclerc, Sainz just stays out of the wall as well to close his lap off. It's not a quick one, though, from Sainz, is it?
And Hamilton's first sector is not remarkable. It's 3/10 slower than Verstappen in sector 1. Sainz goes up into second place. So Ferrari 1-2 at the moment, with Alonso in third, Hamilton 4th, Verstappen 5th, Perez, Gasly, Norris, Magnussen, Tsunoda the top 10. Here comes Sergio Perez. He goes up into second place. Perez up into second. Sainz is improving though. On this lap, no, we've already seen Sainz finish, haven't we? Yes, so sorry, Sainz has finished and taken he's done his final lap. Here comes Fernando Alonso through the final couple of corners. Hamilton has done the fastest middle sector of anybody. Alonso across the line. He goes up into 4th place. Knocks Norris down into 5th position. Next across the line is going to be Hamilton. Verstappen's first sector is not particularly exciting. It'll be so interesting if he doesn't manage to take pole, having backed off on the previous lap. Here comes Hamilton in the Mercedes. It's only third. It's only third. He's 500ths away from Charles Leclerc. It's not going to be pole position for Hamilton. It's going to be Leclerc or Verstappen. And Verstappen is a second up on Charles Leclerc after the middle sector. Verstappen driving masterfully once more.
This is great stuff, isn't it? The track's come alive. Max Verstappen's come alive on those soft tyres. He's just got to see his way through the final few corners now and get to that checkered flag. He's almost there. Turn 18. Oh, a big slide underneath the grandstand. A few corners to go, though. He's got so much time in hand. I don't think that's going to cost him. But here he goes. Is it going to be Verstappen or Leclerc on pole for the Singapore Grand Prix?
Pits. Verstappen pits.
What on earth is he doing?
Verstappen pits. He's going to be 8th on the grid. Why is Verstappen pitting?
I have no idea what's going on. He was a second up.
Box, Max. Box.
Why? Why?
Leclerc's on pole for Ferrari. Perez second. Hamilton third. Sainz, Alonso, Norris, Gasly, Verstappen, Magnussen, Tsunoda. Fuel? Verstappen, did he not have enough fuel?
It could be, but I can only think it's something like the team are worried they haven't got enough fuel left in the car to deliver a fuel sample, which they need to have. But I mean, that is a very surprising decision given how he could have even coasted to the line and probably still improved on his position.
But then you have to have enough fuel in at the end, don't you, for the checks and all that sort of stuff.
He could have turned the engine off and rolled to the line. He was so fast.
Yes. Jenny?
Yeah, I'm just down at the pit lane and I can see Max Verstappen. He's climbing out of the car. He is not going to be a happy man. No one for the team was down there. I don't think they were expecting him. He goes and stands on the scales to get weighed, and only now are the Red Bull guys starting to get down here. What a curiosity on a weekend where Verstappen could win. I'm going to be quiet because he's standing right in front of me. This is a little awkward.
Leclerc, pole position for the Singapore Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, second on the grid for the Red Bull team. So the weekend where Verstappen could win the title, but he needs Leclerc and Perez to have difficult weekends. They're on the front row of the grid. Hamilton third, Sainz fourth, fifth for Alonso, sixth Norris, Gasly, Verstappen, Magnussen and Tsunoda, the top 10.
What the are you guys saying? Unbelievable, mate. I don't get it. What the is this about?
We'll talk about it I'll explain once you're out, Max.
I'll explain once you're out, Max. So there's something has Yeah, because it could be that one, if he finished that lap and then did one more lap, that could take them below the fuel amount needed.
Well, you could have even parked it on the side of the circuit and argued something later, but I mean, I'm surprised. They've done it, of course, they have done a long run, and this is unusual in qualifying. You know, we're doing a lot of short runs. Here they've fueled the car to try and extend the stint length to take advantage of the changing conditions, and perhaps they've just extended that stint length longer than they ever imagined they would, not making that decision to come in and change onto a fresh set of tyres and those extra laps.
And then also backing off on that previous lap, because Leclerc sort of backed off. Well, no, Leclerc did his lap early and then came into the pit. Maybe that's why he had to go for it, because they didn't have enough fuel to back off and then do another lap. Very interesting. This is just obviously conjecture from us at the moment, but really, really strange scenario. Let's hear from the top three. Naomi Schiff is going to be speaking to them, starting with the pole sitter, Charles Leclerc, ahead of the Singapore Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon. Another pole for Leclerc this season, after a very strange ending to that session, with Verstappen only 8th on the grid.
Congratulations, Charles. Incredible lap there in front of this incredible crowd here in Singapore. For everyone here and for everyone at home, take us through that lap.
I didn't hear the end, but yeah, definitely amazing crowd, and it's great to see so many people attending the event. It's been a very, very tricky qualifying. Q1, Q2 with the Inters. Then in Q3, we didn't really know what to do. We went for the soft at the very last minute, and it paid off. I mean, it was really, really tricky. I did a mistake in my last lap, so I thought we wouldn't get pole, but it was just enough. So really, really happy.
It was a challenging start to the weekend for you this weekend. What are the positive thoughts for tomorrow with what the data you've collected so far?
Yeah, I'm very happy with today's results, especially considering the Friday that we've had. We've had very limited amount of laps yesterday for some issues, but we recovered well. So we don't have much data for the race run, but if we do the perfect execution, I'm sure we can win. Okay,
well now, the first question I asked you was, take us through this lap for everyone here and for everyone at home.
It was really, really special. I mean, every qualifying in street tracks are super on the limit. And even more when it's damp like that. There are some parts of the track that are wet, so you lose the rear. But overall, managed to do quite a clean lap, and it worked well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Checo, your first front row start here in Singapore. What are you looking forward to the most tomorrow?
To that start, I think it's a good opportunity tomorrow already from the start to attack Charles and go for the win. It's quite disappointed to miss out on pole by 200s, but at the end of the day, it's a great team result. My team did a fantastic job, right calls out there, and yeah, pretty happy and solid job.
Constantly changing conditions, and as you mentioned, the margins were so tight. What do you think you have on them to get to them tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, it was so tricky to learn the conditions today, and tomorrow, again, it can be wet at any time, so it will be so important and crucial just not to make any mistake and just progress with the race. That will be critical for us.
Good luck. Congratulations, Lewis. You kept us on your toes in that session. There was a moment we thought you might have pole position. It wasn't to be today, but talk us through what this track is like for you and how special it is.
Well, firstly, hi everyone in Singapore. I was pushing so hard. It was so close. I was trying so hard. These guys are always so quick, but I really thought maybe just with a perfect lap, it was really hard to get that we could be fighting for first place, and just didn't have the grip at the last lap. But nonetheless, I'm grateful to be on the second row, and I'm grateful to the team for continuing to push. And we just keep our head down. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day.
But for the margins to have been as close as they were, and for you to have kept us on your toes, has got to be a sign of the progress that your team has made.
Yeah, we didn't know how close we would be this weekend. We knew that the car would be stronger than it was in Monza, but we didn't know how close it would be. But to lose out just by that bit, it's okay. We just get up and fight again tomorrow.
Make the most of it tomorrow then.
Thanks.
So that is your top three for the Singapore Grand Prix. It is Lewis Hamilton in third, then Sergio Perez second, and Charles Leclerc will start in pole position. What a qualifying session that was. It'll be the 9th pole position for Charles Leclerc. The question is, can Ferrari and Leclerc hold on enough for the win? We will find out tomorrow, with drivers getting applauded as they come in to the pen. Make sure you download the Checker Flag podcast for all the reactions to qualifying. We will see you tomorrow when the race gets underway at 1 o'clock. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.